Hi everyone, this is Paul from Comparatech, and in this tutorial I'll be teaching you how to make your own free VPN. We'll use Amazon Web Services to create the server and Windows 10 will be the client. This tutorial is also available in article form on our website comparatech.com. There's a link in the description. You can follow along. To speed things up, I will be copying and pasting a few lines of code and configurations throughout the tutorial from that article. So if you're following along, keep that page open in another tab. Before we get started, make sure you have all of the following: an active Amazon Web Services account. That does require a credit card to sign up, but we'll be using the free tier. Putty, a Windows program we'll use to communicate with our server. WinSCP, a file transfer program for moving files between our Windows PC and the server. And a basic familiarity with common Linux commands. Find the links for all that software in our accompanying article. Once you have all of them, let's get started. Start by opening up the Amazon Web Services dashboard in your web browser. You'll see a page like this. Type EC2 into the search bar and click on the first item that appears in the dropdown. Note that mine says Oregon in the top right corner. You can change your location depending on where you want your VPN server to be. We'll just leave it as Oregon, which is the default. Click the big blue button here that says Launch Instance. On the next page is a list of different types of servers you can use. We'll just pick the top one, which should be the Amazon Linux AMI. Make sure it says free tier eligible and click the blue Select button. Next up, you can choose what size instance you wish to use. There's only one free tier eligible option here, so go with that. The T2 micro instance should already be selected, so just click the blue Review and Launch button. On the next page, we're going to make some changes, so don't launch just yet. Click the link on the right that says Edit Security Groups. This is where you control which devices can connect using specified ports and protocols. We already have one for SSH, Secure Shell, which is how we'll be accessing our server with Putty in a bit. We're making an Open VPN server, and Open VPN by default uses port 1194. So click the Add Rule button. From the first drop-down, select Custom TCP. For port range, enter 1194. For source, I'm going to allow anyone to connect from anywhere. This makes it easy to connect from any device, no matter where I am. But if you want a bit more security, you can enter just the IP addresses of devices that you're sure you're going to use. You can leave the description field blank. Once that's done, click the Review and Launch button. Our instance is now configured how we need it, so click the blue Launch button. A pop-up appears to choose a key pair. Click the top drop-down and select Create New Key Pair. Name it whatever you like. We'll keep it simple and just call it VPN in all caps. It is case sensitive. Know that for later on. Click Download Key Pair and a .pem file will be downloaded. Then click the blue Launch Instance button. Your new EC2 instance is now launching. This is a good time to remind everyone that while we are on the free VPN tier, there is a limit as to how much you can use it. You can read up more on the limitations in Amazon's documentation or in our tutorial. And you can also set up alerts to make sure you do not exceed your limit. We're going to skip all that for now. Just click the blue View Instances button. You can see your active instances listed here. I have 3, but if this is your first time using AWS, you will only have 1. The instance takes a while to start, so give it a minute and the indicator will turn green. While we're here, note the public IP and IPv4 domain of your instance. We'll be using these later on, so keep this page open. Now it's time to connect to our instance using Putty. First, we need to generate a working key file. This acts as a sort of a password to authenticate your access to the server. When you installed Putty, you should have also installed PuttyGen. Launch it and click the blue button that says Load, not Generate. Navigate to the .pem file you downloaded earlier when creating a key pair. Note that you will have to click the drop-down menu on the bottom right of the File Explorer and select all files to make the file appear, otherwise it won't show up. Select the PEM file and hit Open. An alert will appear. Just click OK. No need to add any further information here. Just click Save Private Key. Put it wherever you want, but make sure it has the same name as the PEM file, which in my case is VPN in all caps. Instead of a PEM file, this will save a .pki file to your computer. No need to add the extension. I'm just going to save mine to the desktop for now. Make sure you do not share this file with anyone else. Close out of PuttyGen and launch Putty. Here we'll set up secure shell access to our server. Copy and paste the IP address of your EC2 instance and paste it into the host name field. Under saved sessions, you can type a name for your session so that you don't have to do this all over again in the future, then click save. In the resource tree on the left, expand SSH and click auth so that it's highlighted. Click the Browse button near the bottom and navigate to the .pki file we just saved with PuttyGen. Now go back to the session category that we started out with, click the session profile you created earlier, and hit save. You should be all set up to connect now, so click the Open button to launch a terminal window. An alert will appear on the first time you've done this. Just click yes. In the terminal, you'll first be prompted for a username. If you're using the Amazon Linux AMI, the default user is EC2-user. Enter that in and press enter. Any command you type into this terminal happens on the server, not on your PC. It's good to run a package update before anything else, but I forgot in this case and it didn't matter in the end, so we'll just skip it for now. Let's start by installing Open VPN. Just type sudo yum install -y Open VPN and press enter. A bunch of text will flash across the screen while it installs. Next, we have to set up IP forwarding with a few routing rules, which is necessary for the VPN to work. I can never remember the exact commands off the top of my head, so I'm just going to copy and paste these from the text tutorial linked to in the description, which I encourage you to do as well. There are 3 commands, including the mod probe command I typed in manually. Remember, you can paste text into Putty just by right-clicking. Control V will not work, just right-click. Next, we'll configure Easy-rsa. This is how we're going to authenticate VPN users. To install it, type sudo yum install easy-rsa-y enable repo equal EPEL. That enable repo extra command there, that's because the Amazon Linux AMI does not have Easy-rsa by default, so we have to enable that repo to gain access to it. Next up, we're going to set up our directory where we will store all of the files necessary for our certificate authority. Start with this command, sudo cp-via, and then the file path that we're going to create is user/share/easy-rsa/2.0, and then space ca. For the next step, we need to be root user. Typing in sudo before your command won't work in all of these cases. In the Amazon Linux AMI, by default, you can access root with the following command, sudo su, su. Once you do that, assuming you don't have a password set up or anything yet, the user will now be root instead of EC2 user. We can now use Easy-rsa to generate certificates and keys. To do that, navigate to the directory we just created, type and enter cd to choose the directory, and then user share Easy-rsa 2.0, the same directory we just created. Oops, I actually made a typo there and added the CA to the directory path. It should just end with 2.0. Once you're in the directory, type source space /vars, vars. You'll see some feedback there, then clean all, /clean-all. And the same thing, /build-ca. Okay, at this point, you're going to be prompted for a bunch of information that you don't need. Unless you have some reason to fill these in, like you work for a company, then you should know what you're doing anyway. Just leave them blank by hitting the enter key. Confirm your info at the end. And do the same for the next command, which is /build key server server. That's build-key-server space server. Leave all the fields blank again and confirm your choices. Next up, enter /build-dh 2048. These are Diffie-Hellman keys. This command takes a while it generates the key. We'll use perfect forward secrecy with this VPN in case you were wondering. That means past sessions can't be decrypted even if the key is compromised at some point. Now we need to generate the client key by entering /build-key space client. Leave all the fields blank as usual. I'm only going to set up a single client in this tutorial, but if you want to use your VPN from multiple devices at the same time, you'll need to generate more client keys using this command. Once you're finished, enter Y to confirm your choices. Next up, I did a few things a bit out of order, but hopefully it shouldn't be too confusing. Your next step should be to enter the command cd space keys. You're just moving into the keys directory. I missed that step and it kind of messed things up, but we'll get past it. Next, you're going to run the command to generate our perfect forward secrecy key. That's Open VPN -gen key -secret space pfs.key. And for now, we're going to create a directory for all these keys and certificate files in your Open VPN directory rather than in the Easy-rsa directory. So enter mkdir, that's the command for make directory, and the directory path will be etc/openvpn/keys. Okay, now we're going to move the following 5 files into that directory. They are server.crt, server.key, ca.crt, dh2048.pem, and pfs.key. To speed things up, you can copy and paste a command from our text tutorial linked to in the description. It's for file in server.crt. List all those files, deuce, copy, file, into etc. openvpn.keys, and then done. You'll notice I goofed up here because I'm still in the wrong directory and I generated the PFS key outside of the keys directory. So I'm going to move the pfs.key file to the keys directory with the rest of those files, then move into that directory and then run that command again. Okay, next I'll make an OpenVPN server configuration file. To do that, we need to move into the OpenVPN directory. Just use cd and then go to /etc/openvpn. Okay, now we're going to create a text file. I use Nano. I think it's more beginner friendly, but you can use Vim if you prefer it. So just type nano server.conf, C-O-N-F for config. This will open a new text file. It's already been named server.conf. What I'm going to do now is copy and paste the necessary config from the text tutorial. You can do the same. I'll show you where it is. There shouldn't be any changes necessary to this side of the config, so you can just copy and paste it. So I've copied the config, but I'll go ahead and point out a couple things before we move on. I've set this up to use Google DNS. If you prefer to use your ISP's DNS servers, you can take those lines out, or you can replace those IP addresses if you have some other DNS address, server address that you prefer to use. You can see that I've got a log file set up. It's useful for troubleshooting, but if you're concerned about privacy or having some record of your VPN use on the server, you can ditch it. You can change the verbosity or verb, V-E-R-B, that line. By default, 3 is pretty standard, but you can raise or lower it depending on how detailed you want your logs to be. The higher you put it, 6, for example, is a very detailed log. Up here, all of the keys and certificate files we just created with Easy-rsa are here, except for the pfs.key, which is down at the bottom. Back to the terminal, remember you can paste text just by right-clicking, and to save, once all the text is in there, press Control-O. and then hit enter. That writes out the file. It's another way of saying save. And then you exit using Control X, and that should bring you back to the main terminal. Now we're all set up server side. All that's left to do is start Open VPN. Enter sudo service Open VPN start. The next step is optional, but it will make it easier to get things back up and running if your server reboots or goes down, which does occasionally happen with EC2 instances. Now we're going to whip up a bash script using nano to set up our roots again. You'll probably recognize some of these lines of code. So type in nano server.sh. By the way, you should still be in the etc/OpenVPN directory. Okay, in this blank file, enter the following script. You can find it in our tutorial. I'm not going to read all these lines of code out for you, but you will recognize some of them from the routing rules that we set up earlier in the tutorial. Once again, press Control O to save and Control X to exit. So enter the command sudo checkconfig openvpn on. Checkconfig is chk config. The server configuration is pretty much done at this point, and we're ready to move on to the client's configuration. To connect, we'll need to download a few of the certificate and key files that we generated using Easy-rsa from the server to our PC. Start by navigating to the keys folder at cd space user/share/easy-rsa/2.0. Now, what I'm going to do next might not sit well with some of the security buffs out there. We're going to change the permissions on those files so we can download them freely. Once we've downloaded them, we'll change the permissions back, but during that time, they could be compromised. They're vulnerable. I'm assuming that nobody even knows the server exists yet, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem for most of you. But if it bothers you, then know that you can get Easy-rsa on Windows and do all of your key generation and certificate generation on your local PC, then move the servers from your PC to the server, which is the opposite of the way we're doing it. But for demonstration purposes and because I want this tutorial to be as universal as possible for people maybe on Macs or Linux machines as well, we're just going to do it all on the server. So first, we're going to lower the permissions of the keys folder by typing chmod 777 keys. 777 means everyone has full read, write, and executable access to the files. You can see when I list the files in this directory, keys is now highlighted in green. That indicates the new permissions. We're going to move into that folder and lower the permissions. I'll use another pre-made script from the article to speed things up. So we first move into the directory with cd keys, and then for file and client.crt, listing the files there, do sudo chmod 777 on each of those files, and done. Okay, now we're ready to start up WinSCP, which is one of the required programs I listed at the start of the tutorial. This program works a lot like Putty when it comes to connecting to your instance. In the hostname field, enter either the IP address or the domain of the EC2 instance. For the username, type in ec2-user, then click the Edit button, and then the Advanced button. In the resource tree on the left of this window, expand SSH and select Authentication. Click the private key file field and find the same .ppk file you used with Putty. Press OK and hit save, then log in. When WinSCP loads, you'll see two file directories. The left one is your PC and the right one is your server. In your server pane, navigate to user/share/easy-rsa/2.0/keys. You'll have to go up a few directories first. Select the following 5 files, client.crt, client.key, ca.crt, dh2048, and pfs.key, and then hit the download button or just click and drag them onto your PC. You can put them anywhere for now. I'm just putting them on my desktop. Okay, now select the ca.key file. This is the file used to generate certificates. And because of that, it's not a good idea to keep it on the server because anybody who somehow accesses your server could generate new certificates for themselves and then connect to your VPN. So select it and click the drop down next to the download button to select download and delete. That will remove it from your server and put it on your computer. Put it somewhere secure. I don't want to show the whole world where I store my important files, and this is just a demonstration, so I'm just going to put it on my desktop for now. Remember that if you ever want to connect more devices to your VPN, you will need to put this file back so you can run the key generation scripts. Again, the alternative is to just generate all the certificates and keys on your local machine and move them onto the server rather than vice versa, as we've done here. Moving on, we now have all the files we need from the server, so we can change the permissions back to something more secure. You can grab this command from our text tutorial and enter it into the Putty terminal while you're in the keys directory. It's for file in, and then we list those files again. Do sudo chmod 600, that's a much lower permission level, file done. Then go up one directory and change back the permissions on the folder. That's cd ... just moves you up one directory. And then chmod 600 keys. Next, open Notepad or your favorite plain text editor. We're going to create a client configuration file now. Just like the server config file, we've got one already made for you in the text tutorial. So I'm just going to copy and paste it into Notepad. This time, though, you will have to make one alteration. On the line that starts with the word remote, replace the filler text that I have in there, your.ec2.instance.ip, with the IP address of your server, of your EC2 instance. Save the file as client.ovpn. That's the file extension for the Open VPN app that we're going to use. Note that whenever you save it, you will have to change the file type using the drop-down from text document to all files. If you do not do this, it will append a .txt file extension, and then the OpenVPN app won't be able to read it or won't see it. I'll just save this to my desktop for now as well. Alright, we're almost there. You can use whatever OpenVPN client software you prefer, but I'll just use the OpenVPN GUI. You can download the Windows installer and install it in the default location. This part is pretty straightforward, so I'll just fast forward through this bit. Okay, now open File Explorer and navigate to where you installed your OpenVPN GUI app. By default, this is C drive, program files, OpenVPN. Open the config folder and grab the 5 files that we downloaded from the server to our desktop, plus the .ovpn file we just created. Put them in the config folder. Note this does not include the ca.key file, which should be stored somewhere safe. Launch the OpenVPN GUI in administrator mode. You have to right-click it and click Run as Administrator. An icon will appear in your system tray. Right-click it and choose Connect. Assuming you only have the one OVPN file in your config folder, it should choose it automatically and connect after a few seconds. The system tray icon will turn green, and that's it. You're now connected to the VPN and all of your internet traffic passes through it. Just to show that it's working, I'll ask Google what my IP address is, and you can see it's identical to that of the EC2 server instance. That's all for now. Once again, I'm Paul from Comparitech. Thanks for watching, and good luck.